They say we should have known better than to fall so deep down into this rabbit hole we found. And I was thinking.
Hi, this is Nikolai, and you're listening to my dad, Rafal, co-host James Jardine, and featuring Mr. Jim Tiller on the one and only Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Plug in, listen up, and enjoy.
Deep into this pool of regrettable situations. Pitch black, think back to the last time that we were happy.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome down the Security Rabbit Hole to another rousing edition of your favorite cybersecurity podcast. Welcome down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. This is Raf. I have a full room. I think we're at capacity on this one, but I brought some friends along to talk about, let's face it, if you've recently come back from RSA, you are hurting from this problem. And that is the who do you, I think the Joker said it best. Hubba, hubba, hubba. Who do you trust? Right? I think Jack Nicholson did it better than I did, but that's the premise. James, hi. Jim, hi. How's it going, boys?
It's going. This is going to be an interesting one. It's been a long time since we had this 2x3 grid going on over here. I like it.
Yeah. Listen, you people that listen to this podcast know how much we like to take a stick and poke the bear. I think this is a red hot poker right in the eyeball of the dragon. So let's go. I'm gonna let you guys introduce yourselves. Straight above me, Josh, you go first.
Sure, absolutely. Appreciate it, Raph. And I appreciate you guys having me on. So my name is Joshua Jones. I am the CEO and co-founder of Crush Security. Crush Security is basically a next-gen system integrator or next-gen VAR that we'll talk a little bit more about. So I appreciate you guys having me on.
And by the way, before we continue, if you got a Down the Security Rabbit Hole shirt at RAFCon in Vegas last Black Hat, that's Josh's doing. So thanks, Josh. All right, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me. Chris Roach here. First and foremost, I'm on the board of advisors for Crush. Super excited about that. And we'll talk a little bit about Crush. In my day-to-day, I run a company called Current Theory, partner with a company called DtSR. We focus on protecting critical infrastructure, what makes society tick, how we keep ourselves stood up. And then in the past, my career spanned a lot of years in the CISO seat, General Electric, Next Era Energy, which owns Florida Power and Light. So spent years protecting the grid. If you've been to Florida and the power's been on, you're welcome. And I'm a nerd. AI governance is something I spent a lot of time on recently because it's chased me. I haven't chased it. I think people are trying to make heads and tails of it. They think I can do it and give it teeth. So we're doing that. And thanks for having me.
Yeah. And we're practically neighbors. I just found out, and we crossed paths at GE just barely. So look at all these relationships. All right, honestly, you're last, man, but certainly not least. I love the jacket.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you guys having me here. Obviously, a long-time listener, so it's a tumbling experience to actually be in the show. So thank you for that. Yanesi Nunez, I'm multi-time CISO in financial services, manufacturing, also utilities. And now I'm the CISO at Surf AI. We just came out of stealth 2 weeks ago at CyberSparks. As you guys are mentioning, I've been on a tour for the last couple of weeks after the launch. And what we do is, I'm home finally. We help operationalize your entire security program. So I like to say over the last 2 years, the two most popular letters in the English alphabet are AI. I went to RSA and it felt like if AI was ice cream, I was eating ice cream for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah.
So
I didn't go this year, but that is definitely the impression I got from everybody that I talked to that has gone. All right, guys, I'm going to start it with this. If you're a cybersecurity practitioner, if in some sort of leadership spot, your mailbox gets blown up both on LinkedIn and your email every day with somebody trying to sell you something. I worked in consulting. I fancy that I did a relatively good job gaining people's trust because I try not to lie to people. I have an ethics problem with some of that. But you know what? There are 7,000 trusted people that want to be your trusted advisor breaking down your door. Everybody's selling you the thing that you need because theirs is, and I don't know how everybody gets to use this phrase, but everybody's the industry leader. And so, and if I may be so bold, this is my podcast, so I get to say things like this, but VARs have forgotten what the V stands for. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely. I mean, the V is supposed to be for value. So
it's just cost at this point.
If I can pull out the string that you're laying out for us here is that, as a buyer and a multi-time CISO, I can tell you that I'm always looking to solve problems. And you solve problems. How do you solve problems? You solve problems with communities. So communities of others are looking to solve problems. I always lean into organizations that are helping solve problems, that are building communities solve problems. So for me, those are the ways. If you're going to get somebody to quote unquote buy something, you got to you got to solve a problem first, build the community second, and then go after it. So that's kind of my 2 cents. So that's how you distill, for the most part. That's what I've done in my career. Distill sort of the flat stem from the value.
Hey, Josh, sorry, Chris, you've been in the CISO seat as well. How did you do it? Because, like going back into history, we were at GE, man. Literally everyone is knocking on your door all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's funny. I these days, especially in cyber, right? You vendors approach you, and their product is a mixture of some of the last ingredients you saw in the last demo. It's kind of going to Chick-fil-A, where like the new product launch is like the same 4 ingredients kind of mixed up and then a different plate. That's what you see in the world of it's really true. I mean, so when you see something new, I love Chick-fil-A. No, I'm not going to knock Chick-fil-A.
That's crossing lines on here.
Yeah. There's nothing. Don't you do that.
I'm in Georgia. Please don't ban me from Chick-fil-A. But seriously, at the end of the day, when you have, I'm not about the tech, right? I'm about what it unlocks, right? At the end of the day, we're not about sitting here admiring an application if you're in cyber. It's what it can do for your team. How can you make average teams good? How can you make great teams awesome? If it can help organizations waste less time, make better decisions, get value out of what they already have, which we don't do enough. We want to tell you the next thing. Crush does that for, that's why I leaned into Crush is show me something that I'm not using that I own that can solve the problem that I just uncovered, right? That's also a part of what they do, So it's you have, unfortunately, it takes years of sitting in the seat to understand what is real, what is not, what you need, what you don't, and you got to pay attention to your landscape.
There's that.
What they have, they just don't know what they have in a lot of ways too.
Well, there's that V, right? They'll give me. I remember when, working Accuvant and then Optiv, so much great leadership there at the beginning. And it was always the mantra was always, if you want somebody to talk to you, you have to be willing to give something before you get something. And so what you're talking about is, I know you've got a bunch of stuff. But you're looking to solve a new problem. Do you already have that stuff somewhere in house? That's a pretty bold move for an organization that's got to obviously, right, as a vendor, you got to sell to sustain. But I like that approach because nobody wants to do that because it costs money and time. And Josh, how do you get that? Who did you Jedi mind trick to do that, or yourself?
Yeah, I think at the core of it, what we're really trying to do is build value at trust or value and trust at scale, right? And I think everybody here could probably admit, and I think even looking into the market, the ecosystem is broken, but it's not broken at the 1%, it's broken at the 99. I think everybody could probably agree over the career. They've had one good rep, one good consultant, somebody who did a really good job for them for a year or two, and then they moved or whatever. And it's really, turn the inverse. And this is where we look at the problem. And, I've been doing this 21 years now, and both on the vendor side, the consulting side, and really at the core of it, it was, hey, we can do a really, really good job for our one client or two, but as a consultant, you might have 25 clients on your list. And so the other 23, you can't do at scale. You can't give them the love. You can't constantly be there. You can't understand what their pain is. You can't at 10 o'clock necessarily be there for them when they're in a breach. You're going to do your best to be there, but you might be distracted somewhere else on an airplane going to another client, whatever it is. And so it was really about looking at the problem at scale. And how do we help out the other 98, 99%? How do we create a level playing field? How do we allow CISOs to not just see the 3 technologies that partner or that system integrator, whoever recommends, because they've had success, but maybe it's because they're getting paid the most, or maybe it's also because they don't know the other 23 in that space, right? So it's how do we bring that at scale, and how do we do that for the small guys as well as the big guys? And that's kind of how we looked at the problem and how we went about solving it.
We've had, I mean, obviously there needs to be a change in which most people, the way they go about finding vendors, you know, historically, right, there's one magic vendor out there that has a great looking quadrant that everybody looks to like, that's their go-to of being able to do it. But that doesn't really compare really against the product, right? Like, they've done something and they've put analysis to say, oh, here are the top for this, but not everybody's on that, right? There's a lot of, I don't want to say distrust around some of that stuff, right? Even I think so with different advisors that are out there, your trusted advisors. I think like what you were just saying, you know, is that they know certain things, but how do I really trust that the reason they're peddling these three is because they like them or because they're getting kickbacks?
Well, it's also, in my opinion, a little bit of what do they know about your environment and what is the overlap. So right now, most CISOs are trying to either, you know, deal with a flat budget and the increasing problems that they have with AI and everything else, or they're being asked to reduce 5 or 10%. And so it's really about, you know, where is the overlap? So, and I'm not going to pick on anybody particularly. Let's just say one of the big 5 products. You recommend the guys with the P or the guys with the C, and you say, hey, this is the solution to this problem. You should take a look at it. Well, what they're not doing, and this is why a lot of large organizations have 3, 4, 5, you know, security architects, is they're not looking at the 30 or 40% overlap to the existing tool stack. And so now you're going to spend $1 million with 400 of it potentially being bloat because you've already solved that problem. So how do you look at your stack? How do you overlap with the 2 or 3 or 10 solutions that are options for you? How do you look at dependencies? And how do you do that at scale? And how can you do that in minutes or hours versus weeks or months?
Which changes over time, right? I mean, the tool I have today, or the tool I bought 3 years ago, today has many more features in it than it did then.
That's a good point.
And I probably don't even know, right? Like, people don't even keep up with that.
Yep. I think that's a great point, James. And I feel that we can all be a little cynical and we can point blame everywhere, by the way, at the CISO themselves, the companies, the rating agencies, the VARs. You can blame everybody. The reality is, at the end of the day, as a buyer, you have a responsibility to make sure, number one, that you can manage your budget. How many CISOs you know that don't know how to manage their budget? How many CISOs are rationalizing their security stack, their security spend, heck, their processes around this? So when people are overwhelmed, they tend to go for the things that bring comfort. So we mentioned community, we mentioned trust, and sometimes we just got to show people the way. And I find that instead of pointing the fingers, what are we doing to make sure people have a sort of a playbook that works at scale for the masses, that simplifies? Right now, we've overcomplicated I've got a problem. Here's a product or solution. How do I implement it, right? We're stuck in long-term contracts. So even though products are evolving and new ones are coming in, how do you rationalize your spend to then get the new? And what I've seen some companies do that it's been effective is you're always rationalizing. Number one, you create a group or assign people to be responsible for emerging technology in cybersecurity. That's the space that I'm in. So the company, I learned this when I was at Citi. Shout out to Charles Blauner and the team there that helped me. We just had a reunion at RSA. But I've been doing that ever since, is how do you rationalize the spend? And I think if we can bring that to the masses, how to rationalize, manage their budget, and then create that process, then whoever can deliver that at scale, I think it's going to be successful, because the problem space, I think everyone's complicit in the problem.
Yeah, you understand. I want to add real quick, because you touched on a problem, or it kind of glossed over it, because maybe you've never seen this, but it is 100% a problem. Companies like the one you worked for, right? The companies that you in your career, you can get individualized attention, and you can afford to have a team of people that continuously evaluate new technologies against what you have. Then there's the other 98% of enterprise.
But like, hey, I've been through the gamut, right? So I get it.
So I think doing this, and some people do the thing where they buy, a Gartner subscription. They'll go to conferences. They'll join. There's like some of the in the healthcare industry. I know one of the networks has a CISO group that gets together, all 50 of them, and they talk, and which is fantastic. But like, there wasn't a way to scale things I know, things I've experienced against what I need, what the vendor has told me, and what actually works. So that like that little slice in the middle, I missed that a lot when I was on the seller side, on the consultant side, because there were so many times where you'd be, in the room brought in by a sales team, and the customer was like, okay, well, here's this problem we have. And I would ask questions like, what tech do you have in-house? And sometimes I would immediately hear something like, okay, that piece of tech does 80% of this, but I can't look at my salesperson and go, we're not needed here, because I wouldn't be working there long, right? So you're like solving, or I mean, at least addressing, Josh, you're addressing this sort of pink elephant, nuclear bomb, third rail kind of situation. You've got to be making so little friends right now on the vendor side.
Well, I think the point here is that the problem is so varied. There's so many areas of responsibility. You almost need like an independent party to kind of vet out what reality and what fair, right, what value really looks like, Raph. That's how I'm seeing it.
Dude, I'm not disagreeing. What I'm saying is there have been independent parties.
He's doing
we know who they are. We don't need to mention
listening. He's doing air quotes.
Right, I'm doing air quotes. You didn't see it, but that was a massive erosion of trust over time, because it turned out, that was a pay to play game too, right? Chris, you're chomping at the bit here. Go ahead.
And I was going to come from like cyber loves train wrecks, right? We like pointing at them and saying, don't do that. I'll tell you what, you go to I've worked at a big organization, had big teams, and I've done a lot of year-end reviews. And, when you have a miss and a cyber miss, that's always there, right? No one forgets that. I've stuck it to folks who've made the wrong software platform choice. You waste cycles, you waste money. Sometimes you only have so many resources to get a new platform in every year, and then that cycles you could be doing other things with, strategically fighting the bad actors. There's always something new and emerging. Putting a platform in is not an easy thing to do. It takes time. It takes cycles. And so, from my perspective, I don't care how many data points you need. Let's go find someone who you trust, that has done it with data. I mean, doing it in house. GE, we love to do things in house. We thought we could do it the best.
Oh my God!
Right? And at the end of the day, that you can't do things on an island in cyber. We're friends. The CISO for Coke is probably friends with the CISO for Pepsi, right? Hey, what did you put in? Right? At the end of the day, like we want the industry to be safe. Like, let's use all the data we got, and that's what we're doing, right?
Yeah, it's really.
It's almost like we lost. It's almost like we lost sight of the mission, right? Like, everybody's supposed to be on this mission to defend the world, and we lost sight of the mission. Just saying.
You know why? We all know why. Honestly, we all know why we lost sight of the mission, and that color is green. We got greedy. It happens everywhere, but I feel like cyber is one of those places where getting greedy should be a governor. Like, that should be a red flag, and there should be a governor on that, right? Because we're all ultimately, I mean, you guys, I've been on that side, Jim's been on that side, James is on that side, on the same side on this, implementer side. Like, you guys are ultimately trying to do good, keep your shareholder value high, protect your customers, do good. Like, that shouldn't be a stretch to say, help me do that, and also I'm okay with you making a profit. Where the hell did that go wrong? Because you go to RSA and you can see the exact way in which that has gone wrong.
No one says no to budgets. No one says no to ask CISOs. They're finally getting to a point where they're like, okay, guys, you need to make some choices. You need to cut, right? I mean, I point to a CISO that says they have not enough tools, right? I mean, then the absolute value of how many tools they had. I've been in organizations where you had 2 tools, 75 people, 150 tools. Okay, well, that's crazy, because no one's had the cojones to say no, right? Okay, no, you can't have that cyber leader. Well, then the next day, if something's going to happen, you say, well, that would have prevented that thing from happening. That's just, it's easy to say yes. It's easy to say yes.
Yeah.
That's why, so.
Yossi, have you ever had a consultant come to you and answer a question with, no, you don't need any more stuff?
I always, my question is always, what are you helping me replace? right? Because that's usually the conversation. What problem you're solving, what tools we're replacing. And if it's a feature set, I mean, it's really hard to have a conversation. So as we've been saying, this is a difficult problem. And there's so many reasons why we've gone down this dark path where we find ourselves in. The reality is we've got to show people the way of how to get out and how to get back on track. And to me, that's going to require efforts across the board. It's not just, I don't think one segment of the ecosystem solves it. It's got to be a concerted effort. Otherwise, I mean, we don't dig out of this. It's like saying, fix the government. Right? And that's what we're talking about here. It's got to be a concerted effort.
I got to comment on something you just said. And I think what's interesting is I would almost argue that we went from a identified problem to help me find the right solution, which is not necessarily what I think we're in now, which is hammers looking for nails, right? So we have a lot of products out there. Everybody's trying to solve problems. So they're trying to convince you that you have this problem, right? So it's interesting, honestly, when you said it's like, well, what are you replacing? I mean, it sounds fundamental, but it's not. People don't practice that as much as they should. And I think it's all about buying the next shiny object sometimes. And maybe not now because there's a lot of interesting things going on. But I would suspect that somehow things have converted from I have a problem, let me find the best solution to I have tons of solutions. Ooh, I've got that problem. I can buy that. And that's where we end up with 400.
I think. Yes, sorry,
that,
Jim. I was trying to interrupt here, but now you tickle something in my brain, or the responsibility that someone running a cybersecurity or technology organization have is a lot of these folks are not learned in finance or procurement or life cycle about things. So you have this position of power and buying power, but you don't necessarily know how to have that should be part of the training. As a security leader responsible for the protection of an organization, budgeting should be
flag on the field. Wait, there's training?
See what I'm saying? So
You're right. You're right. No, see, so CIOs, most good CIOs do ask the question that you asked, which is what are we replacing? Going to get a new ERP? Well, now the old one's going away. That's how CFOs approve budgets for CIOs, right? You don't go get a new shiny ERP and keep the other one you have, right? I mean, that's pretty fundamental. At the end of the day, we're protecting the environment. We're protecting the same sort of assets we always have been, right? And we should be getting better at it. We should be more efficient at it, right? The longer the industry goes on. Now, there's different ways, right? Different ways to approach that. But fundamentally, there's a Mount Rushmore of tools that you need to have in place, right? Yeah. If you're a CIO or a CISO, focus on those. And then the ones in the middle, it depends on what industry you're in. You should know those, and you should know when it's crowded. Crowded tool sets make for more risk. I've seen it happen right before.
That one that one we agree on. Josh, I'm going to let you talk because you're about to lose your mind over there. Go.
No, I was just going to make a comment, right? I can't tell you how many times I talk to hundreds of vendors, as you guys can imagine. I feel like the only people who talk to just as many vendors other than CISOs are the partners, right? And the partner ecosystem. It's all about, sitting in your shoe and trying to understand, do I want to bring you in front of somebody? And, I think, Jim, you brought a good point with the hammer and the nail. And I can't tell you how many different solutions are coming out right now where first they have to explain to the CISO, hey, let me tell you about this problem you had no clue you had. Now let me show you how to solve this problem. And oh, by the way, there may or may not be a tax yet on this problem, but let me tell you why it's so important for you to buy my technology. So and I'm sitting in the advisor seat. I'm like, politely, why the heck would I bring that in front of my CISOs? They got 14 other projects. They got all these other problems. We're trying to solve and overlap data, all kinds of different things. And you want me to come bring them XYZ tool that is nowhere on their radar, and chances are they don't have that problem. So it's pretty interesting, but also trying to understand that what is in their environment? What are they already doing? Where are their priorities? Where are they already seeing active attacks coming from? Because a lot of times it comes out of context and it's not based on actual risk or based on risk to that environment, or knowing where the gaps are in that environment, knowing what the CISO is thinking about or what's on their risk register, right? And so it just it's something that drives me bonkers sometimes, but again, is also why when I went to build this company, it was to do the opposite. Let me talk to the Yanessis of the world and the Chris's of the world and say, look, tell me 20, 30 problems that you have right now that you're either sick of having to do it the same way, or that you'd like to be addressed, or I'm having to pay $700 an hour to a consultant to come do it when it should just be included, right? And so we kind of took the opposite approach, and it's just interesting.
I love that you're taking it that way. But said something that like it is now it was a tickle in the back of my brain, and now it's a full blown rabid squirrel shouting at me. You mentioned like the this learning, teaching, the training for CISOs. Like there is a. This is a fantastic point because there's a ramp, right? Nobody starts out as being super senior, knowing everything. So you get your first CISO gig, and what do you depend on? Your peers, and as much as you can learn on your own. 99.9% of the time, I would venture.
Existing team,
right? And then a lot of us, a lot of the stuff that we learn comes from our vendors, our partners, our people we hire, that kind of thing. But if you can't trust the people or the systems that you're interacting with in those early years, you're going to have a bad time. And so over the last, I'd say 5-7 years, those relationships have been very one-sided. Vendors coming to you and saying, I got this thing I want you to buy. It's awesome. I think you've got this problem. Let me show you how big this problem is, as opposed to the buyer going out and putting a call and saying, I have an issue. Here's the stuff I have to work with. Do I need something new, or can I move some things around here? What's my move? Because it's not in anybody's best interest. And I'm sorry, but this is just a fact to tell you, no, you're good. Just, you've already paid for that. Just repurpose this thing over here. Right. And so that's why it doesn't get addressed. And it's frustrating because this is how we get to CISOs that have, Chris, you nailed it, overbought, right? 160 some odd tools per average, I think was the security team, right? Big or small, like there's no possible way to manage that, right? You've got stuff that's old that's now becoming a risk, right? Security tools do become risk. Ask me how I know. And other stuff that kind of feeds into that. So there's got to be, to your point, there's got to be a way out of this that doesn't involve us further digging down.
I would say though, like, and I'll put a pin on too to kind of bring us all back a little bit, maybe only because I'm solving massive problems and I think it's out there and I'm doing it through data and platform. But if I was to take a step back, right, even of my previous statement of, there is a lot of time where, there's companies that are coming out, and we're seeing a lot of the AI companies where they're coming back and saying, what if there was a better way, right? What if I could show you a way to do the three things that you're doing right now manually, to put it into a platform and allow you to, think like the stores, or think like even like the NSC's company that serves, like how do I further automate some stuff that you're doing massively manual today, right? Because right now I do feel like we're coming into different times where it's less of how do I sell you another widget, but how do I get rid of 3 widgets and put it on this one thing, right? Or how do this manual process you've been putting together. So I will say there is a caveat, especially right now at the AI age, but then it comes the other problem is like, how do you find these? Like, and how do the partners know to recommend them? And how do the CISOs now figure out and weed through the 1,900 new tools that just came out? And how do they figure out through data, how's it going to fit in their environment? Do they even have that problem? And I can't go sit on 73 demos, right? And who's going to help me? And this is where like the whole security architecture piece and stuff comes into place. I'm looking at data and mapping to environments and looking at it based on risk. And so it's just a never ending circle, if you will. But I will say that I think with AI, we're going to see a lot more things get consolidated, which I'm here for and I'm excited for.
Well, I work for alongside a very smart CRO, and Josh, you touched on this a little bit. Like, why does anybody on the buyer side talk to anybody on the vendor side? And he drills into his sales organization. We have one of 3 things we're allowed to do. You can help the customer make money, save money, or reduce risk. Besides that, you're useless, right? Like if what you're doing doesn't do one of those things for the customer, then you're in the wrong place. And like nowhere in there is the us make money, right? It's you're ultimately serving your customers. So you got to help them reduce risk, save money, or make money. And Josh, automation, right, potentially helps reduce risk, save money, making money because security for a brief moment in time was a differentiator, a value add, and companies would say, "Oh, if you're doing this, you have a leg up on your competition. We're going to go with you," right? I know the financials honestly did it that way as well. I got a lot of those where I worked for part of GE where and Chris, I think you can sympathize, where we did private branded cards for somebody, and something as simple as a checklist, there would be some of the things they'd ask. This is the minimum number of things that you have to do for security. If you have these other ones, that's great. They're not required, but they're a bonus. And then you can, certifications and whatnot. And we would use security as a competitive advantage because we knew a small investment across a wide number of customers would pay back. But I think we've lost the plot there. But yeah, I like where you guys are headed. I like the idea of, because we are coming up on a point where I think the AI revolution, the AI boom is going to change a lot of things at security. I don't think it's going to put all of us out of business or fundamentally change everything, but I think it's going to change a lot. And I think as a CISO now stares at their portfolio of technology and the usage of AI in the company, this is, if there's ever been a time to where you need a friend in the business, this is it. You guys agree?
100%.
Well, Josh said it right? Josh, we're helping people. This is ultimately a mission that Josh has. I mean, he's selling software for a long time, but there's a layer of data that has not been unlocked, right? And it's where Josh has been sitting, and the companies that he's been with have been sitting. Whereas you get data from the vendors and you get data from the buyers. You ask them how it went. You know how it went. You've had a customer forever, right? You know if they bought something, they like it or not, or they're replacing it. There's a whole layer of data that, when unlocked, can help other people and existing customers, right? And that's kind of it's the benevolent part of what the mission is here that I love is, guys, we got to get better as an industry, right? We're still there's still money to be made. There's plenty of pie to eat, right? And we're about to shift. You're absolutely right. I don't think people understand how much it's going to shift our space, everybody's space, right? And we got to get ahead of it. And this is the solution that's unlocking a lot of that. If you have a risk assessment, you drop it in, it'll say, hey, here's what you need to do from an industry landscape perspective. It's nice. It's objective. I think it's objective, right? That's the beauty of it.
That's the part that's important. Is it can't be based on your answer. Can't be based as a VAR or as a reseller or a partner. Your answer to a customer's question can't be the vendor that pays me the most. It just can't, because that's how we got to where we are today. Truth in the space is hard to come by. But boy, if you've got an objective way and you can show your results, right? Show people how you got there to an answer, that's gold. Maybe platinum or whatever's beyond that.
Spot on. How do we make you more defensible? How do we give you the data to have a defensible discussion in front of your boss or your board or whoever, right? So right. When you come back to it, it's this is exactly why, and here's the data, and here's how it integrated, and here's how the flaws were, and here's the percentage of why it would work and wouldn't work, and be able to have that all at your fingertips, right? And how do you do that without necessarily saying, hey, Mr. CISO, I'm going to charge you subscription to this, because that's the other bigger piece is everything we're doing is not charging you some subscription. It's just being your partner. Imagine if I left you a field CISO and he just lived in your office and sat next to you the whole time, but he knew everything about your environment. He knew, 26, 27, 28,000 tools. He understands how it could potentially integrate, where the breakage points, the feature functions, and he could answer anything in real time of what'll work, what won't work. And so that as you're looking at your architecture or your program, it's how do I start looking at it differently? How do I get an independent view? How is it somebody I trust, and how is it based on data? Right. And by the way, how do you not charge me to do it?
That's hard to argue with.
Does this solve some of the vendor management problem not from identifying vendors, but everybody struggles with the whole process? Let me send you 600,000 questionnaires. Let me send you all this. Right? We can sit there and identify, okay, in our environment, this tool would be great. And then for some reason it fails the vendor management process because they wouldn't answer questions, or they're hosting data in a country you're not allowed to host data in, or whatever. You know what I mean? How do we bridge that gap of we really see the whole picture? Because we have one side that's trying to look at from a contractual standpoint, here's all the requirements we have to meet to say we can use a vendor. And then on this side, we're saying, hey, based on our infrastructure and based on what we're doing and all this stuff we have, hey, well, this would be the best vendor for us. Is there a tie that ties those together?
There is, and it's really, and I'll talk about it differently. It's changing the conversation, right? It's changing the conversation upside down, which is really what the CISOs and security and risk and even procurement is looking at. It's not what are the 150 things all 19 of these technologies can do and how they would fit. It's what are the 12 things that make them different independently, and do those 12 things matter to me, right? So it's turn it upside down, and let's talk about the 12 differentiators, right? And do those things actually matter to my environment? And how does that match against my budget? And where are those 12 things overlapped into other product sets? And so, and this is no different than any security architect team has been kind of doing in the past, is like, who can solve it? How much can they solve it? How much overlap is there? And then from there, let's create an RFP, RFI, or documentation, or let's create what good or success looks like of this project. Let's work backwards, and you start checking off the box. Well, the first 100 everybody can do. It's more about the second 100 things, and do they matter to you because you're a large financial institute, or I'm a small manufacturer, right? And that second 100 is really what matters, and it depends on what you're in, how you're regulated. Doesn't matter what frameworks do you follow, and being able to do that now very quickly at scale, especially now in the AI age, being able to defend against the attackers leveraging AI against you is very, very important.
Yonisy, one for you, because I remember getting out of GE and getting into smaller companies and realizing what I thought was small, most companies consider extremely large. And what I thought was large, most people couldn't fathom as my vendors. As ISS once told me, well, can't you just uninstall and reinstall them all? And I'm like, 1.7 million endpoints, dude. This is 2001. Anyway, but like, how do you use a technology or a partner like this? Because you're the independent guy here, right? You're the actual buyer. So we're all talking to you. How do you use this within a planning process, a budgeting process? How do you what are you doing now what behaviors would you change if you're on board with this type of platform? Like, does it save you time? Does it save you manpower? Does it save you money? Like, walk me through what the benefit you see are, because that's interesting to me.
Yeah, no, so I think we did a really good job setting the context about the problem and current state and where we are sort of in our this time and space that we're all sharing, and we're getting towards the end, right? Like, how do we go and fix this? And for me, really is around the visibility. I think we all talked a little bit about being able to concretely and finitely getting to a solution. But part of that is understanding what you have and who you are. And I feel that we live in sort of a life cycle continuum. There's a continuum of life cycle of your people. There's a one around your technology. And of course, where we are right now, all our processes, to everyone's point, are changing with AI. So for me, is having the vantage point to have that view across all those different areas can help me pinpoint and others pinpoint what should my next step be, because now I have visibility and clarity. The problem around computing has always been you can't see it. But the minute you have visibility into what all the components of your problems are, then you can have a plan to go execute and do the right thing. I think what's happening right now is there's so much noise. It's really difficult to see what are the next steps. So kind of what Crush is offering here, which I'm really excited about, is bringing visibility, clarity, and then the experience and recommendation, Raf. Because at the end of the day, you got to go execute, but it's hard to execute when the noise is extravagant.
Yeah, it feels like not to pat you on the head too hard there, Josh, because I got to give you some kind of crap, because otherwise, this is going to be like fanboyism. But I feel this is a way. If you can execute on this well and it works, and I suspect the adoption will be relatively rapid, because once the buyers realize that there is an unbiased third party knowledge aggregator, and because that's what you're doing is you're building an actual live knowledge base, right? That can answer questions that you may have, that you don't have to send an email to Avar, wait 2 weeks for the person to come off a vacation, and then tell you the answer that they think is best. You can just do objective analysis without having to do 27 POCs and talk to 27 vendors. And that's a lot of time savings that you can actually focus on, as Giannis said, actually executing the job you're actually paid to do. So I'm excited. This is actually, I gotta be honest. I was a little skeptical because, another vendor enters a chat, but this is not that. I'm excited for you, dude. You guys
I appreciate
got
that.
something good here.
Yeah, I think Crush is going to be a community, right? And communities help solve problems. So that's my hope for Crush's future. It's a community.
Yeah, my dream is that everybody is leveraging Crush. It doesn't mean everybody has to buy through Crush, right? I want CISOs to feel like they have the opportunity that, I want to do a few things with you. I want to be your business partner. I want, though, you to wake up at midnight with a question or epiphany or whatever and be able to pick up your phone and ask a question in my platform. Help get an answer, help get options, help run 3 or 4 scenarios. Now the fact that we have your data secured and we can now run scenarios for you, no different than you might pick up and ask your partner or your sales rep or whoever. To your point, they get back to you the next day, 2 days later, whatever. I want to be able to do that in real time. And I don't necessarily want you to feel like that, hey, by using my platform, you have to do everything through me, because that is absolutely not the case. I want to be able to go out there and help the ecosystem.
Josh, last question, and I promise we'll wrap it up here. What's the cost? What's the cost of entry? Like, what's the cost to ride the Crush ride? Is it like do you have to? So no subscription. Okay, I'm listening. Do you have to provide? What do you got to provide? Like sign over your firstborn? Like, how does this work?
No, so our revenue stream is exactly the same as a lot of the other players out there, right? We do services, we do a lot of regulatory services, we do everything based on data, and then we also resell technology. So the thing though is we do is pre-sales and now post-sales. So we're delivering value so that you always have somebody that you can go out and ask questions against your network. We can help 3 personas in your organization. So we're bringing, that connective tissue in your organization. So the cybersecurity team in the cyber office has the ability to look at feature functions and comparisons and frameworks and all the things. But then the risk office can work with us and automate a lot of the service delivery through data. So if we already did your PCI, we now have 50% of the data to do your ISO, and we now have 50%.
Okay, so data.
And so it's all about re-leveraging the data and then using that data against what the cyber team's looking at. And then lastly, we show you, what do you own? How many licenses do you own? What is your renewal cost? What is your exit clause? What does the out clause actually say in a particular contract? So we give that value to procurement as well. So we create connective tissue so that when the business officer is looking to say, when is my renewal? What do I own? When is my out clause? I wanted to replace this. What am I looking at? It's all there in their fingertips. And oh, by the way, go ahead, Crush, create me an RFP. I want to send this out to 10 people, right? I want to see who could replace my tool.
That's interesting.
To be able to do that for free. So it's, hey, do a pen test with us, or help us come in and do your ISO or whatever. This is a service engagement, in which case you get free access to the platform, because now you're a customer and now we're kicking off all kinds of things to give you access. Or you know what? I'm going to push this renewal through Crush so I can get access to their platform. Or this next project I was going to do anyway, it's the power of $1. If you were going to spend $1 on CrowdStrike and you were going to use your XYZ vendor or partner, whoever, at the end of the day, you get CrowdStrike. That's the value. If you were to do the same thing through Crush, you get access to our entire platform with dozens and dozens of use cases, multi-tenancy, everything at your fingertips, your own secure tenant, that you can also teach the platform additional outcomes to help solve your independent problems.
Josh, if I didn't know any better, I think you're a sales guy.
At what point does this go past security? Like, why wouldn't it do? Like, can it do infrastructure? Can it do all
James? Yesterday is the answer.
When you talk about like procurement, like you watch procurement, they're going out looking for contract management solutions or looking for these different things. Do I want this one to this one? Like using 2 different ones, this one just for security. I mean, does this expand out at some point? Does security fall off Crush at some point that you could do infrastructure? You could do all the IT stuff.
James, you should have asked for a piece of the company before you said all that.
This comes up like every other conversation, and the answer is, we're going on up soon, real quick, to $1 trillion industry of cybersecurity. Myself, all the other founders, we got 60, 70 years in cybersecurity. Multiple decades focused on a single area. It's $1 trillion industry here pretty soon. Yes, could we do it? Maybe in 3 to 5 years. I don't have a magic ball to say, hey, would we pivot, and is there a good reason why? I can tell you right now, though, I want to stay in our lane. I want to stay what we're good at. I want to work with the people that I know and trust and how to solve their problems. I don't want to pretend to be the expert on Microsoft. I don't want to pretend to, have to go out and hire people and now say that, because I built this platform, we're now the experts on X, because I still have consultants and field CISOs and people who have to go shake your hand, look you in the eye and tell you the truth. The truth is we're experts in cyber and risk. We're not experts in infrastructure.
I love it. All right. That's a good place to end, boys. I learned something. That's actually kind of cool. I'm excited. I want to take a look at this thing. Hey guys, if people are interested, this is definitely, I think, a conversation to get some people's brains tickled and moving. Where do they look you up?
Just go to crushsecurity.com. You can actually request access to the platform. We have free demo tenants. So as long as you actually have a URL, then a domain name that's actually a company name, not a Gmail or something like that, you can get free access. You can kick the tires around. You can play around. It scales multi-tenancy, all the different things built in. So it's really a way to take a look at it. But check out the website. There's a bunch of videos and stuff on there. And yeah, we can go from there.
All right, gentlemen, thanks for donating some of your time. Jonas, always a pleasure to see you, buddy. Chris, we're neighbors. We got to get on the lake together. And then Josh, always a pleasure, man. Guys, thanks for doing this. This has been a very enlightening. Listen, James, we ended a podcast on a positive note. How do you like that? You always give me shit that we're always doom and gloom. Well, guess what? We solved something. Or maybe we're solving something.
We are.
He doesn't look convinced.
No. Listen, I'm all for it. I'm just thinking about after this call, reaching out to Josh to figure out how to fork this GitHub repo so that way I can do it for everything else. If they've got no interest in doing it for infrastructure and everything else.
I love it. The ideas start flowing. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. This has been another episode of the Down to Security Rabbit Hole podcast with Josh, Chris, and Jonas. This has been fantastic. I hope you learned something. Give these guys a shout. They're pretty legit. Hope you learned something from this, and I'll catch you guys another time, another place, on another Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Ciao, y'all. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
This is Bella. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to leave my dad a review and share this with your friends. Bye.